Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here. And Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood is among my favorite factions in the game. Not like there's a whole lot of them, but you get the idea. An organization of ruthless assassins looking to restore their power and prestige, made up of some of Tamriel's most interesting characters. Throughout their questline, the Dragonborn will be sent on a variety of missions, or contracts as they like to call them, to take out certain NPCs. Most of the time we, or at least I, simply follow orders and assassinate whatever targets we're given, without much of a bother to pay attention to the intricate lives that these characters live. Save for a couple of special cases, like the Emperor of Tamriel, or that cruel woman running the orphanage. But many of the contracts the Brotherhood sends you after are actually extremely fascinating personalities that we really shouldn't be overlooking. So today we'll be taking a look at 5 Dark Brotherhood contracts you may have missed in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, before we get into this, I do want to note that I'm particularly playing favorites towards the side contracts that the Brotherhood offers, as Bethesda has crafted really cool stories around a lot of them, but doesn't give them very big spotlights. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, without further ado, let's do further. Starting off, we have Agnes. And this woman is probably among my favorite characters in all of Skyrim, let alone the Dark Brotherhood questline, despite a relatively small role. You'll be given the contract to murder her to death by Nazir after completing the quest, The Silence Has Been Broken, wherein the player hears the Night Mother speak to them for the first time. Agnes is an elderly maid, living and working inside of Fort Greymoor in the Whiterun Hold. And the funny thing about her is that she really doesn't seem to care who the occupants of the fort are. You see, Greymoor will be under either Stormcloak, Imperial, or Bandit control depending on where you're at in the Civil War questline. And no matter the faction, Agnes will be there cooking and cleaning for the troops inside. Even the bandits seem to tolerate her. When spoken to, she'll tell you that the fortress changes hands often, but she refuses to leave. She comes with the fort, as she puts it. Take a listen to some of her dialogue.
They come, they go. I barely notice. Hard enough to keep up with who owns this fort. One side takes over, the other runs away. I tell them, I ain't leaving. I come with the place. Ha! I remember one morning, long time ago, I woke up and the place was run by some orcs. Went to bed that night, it was all vampires. Don't matter to me.
Even when you directly tell the woman you're here to take her out, she won't even have time to take you very seriously, and will just write you off and go about cleaning and cooking. Now, funnily enough, in Greymoor, you can even find a couple of notes. One written by Agnes, titled Complaint Letter, which ridicules the soldiers inside for tracking mud in the castle and not doing enough to help her deal with the skeever infestation. She calls them mutton heads and sarcastically refers to them as men in quotations. She clearly can get away with quite a lot. Another paper inside the barracks, titled Soldier's Request, is written from the perspective of one of the troops inside, addressed to the commander. In it, the unnamed soldier complains that Agnes keeps waking the men up in the middle of the night by cleaning too much, and has been putting their gear on shelves, resulting in terrible equipment mix-ups. And the soldier asks the commander to try and keep the maid out of their barracks from here on out. It's likely that one of these annoyed soldiers in the barracks, be it Stormcloak, Imperial, or Bandit, performed the Black Sacrament to try and get rid of Agnes. But it's quite funny to imagine that no one was confident enough to outright take care of her themselves. Not even the supposedly ruthless and merciless bandits had it in them. Alas, unfortunately, they've left that job to you. Next on our list is Malurl. He's a Dunmer mage and Dwemer researcher held up in the ruins of Mizinchaleft. According to Nazir, Malurl has hired a large company of bandits to both protect him and assist with excavating dwarven artifacts. So you'll either have to fight your way through quite a few foes, or be very sneaky to get to this dark elf. A letter you can find before entering the ruin itself, written by Malurl, harshly criticizes some of the mercs he's employing. It reads, quote, "I'm sick of repeating myself. Hand this to the man replacing you between shifts and ensure he reads it before you leave the post. I am not to be disturbed. Permit no one in my chamber ever. Certain people may come looking for me. I want those people dead. You'll be back to raiding pig farms tomorrow if you foul this up." End quote. Clearly our target isn't the most pleasant of bosses. Inside his room deep within the dungeon will also be Malurl's own journal. in which he describes hurriedly fleeing from Cyrodiil for mysterious and undisclosed reasons, but eventually making it to Skyrim, where his carriage was attacked by bandits. But thanks to a silver tongue, and promises of actual silver, our Dunmer friend was not only able to talk his attackers out of robbing him, but convinced them to help him excavate various dwarven ruins. He's planning on recovering artifacts and selling them to potential buyers for a profit. Towards the end of his diary, the target also concedes that he doesn't suspect he'll be able to pay the bandits what he promised, but that's not his problem. Suffice to say, there's probably a number of people with motives for wanting this mischievous mage out of the picture. All you've gotta do is make those dreams happen. Coming in at number 3, Narfi is a Nord beggar living out of the ruins of his family home in Iverstead. He lost his parents at a very early age, but about a year ago, his sister, Rada, mysteriously disappeared. And since then, he's become almost entirely despondent and insane. He speaks in the third person and constantly remarks that he wishes he could have said goodbye to his sister. He'll be one of the first contracts you'll have the option to take up shortly after joining the Brotherhood and visiting the Sanctuary. Now, the cause of Narfi's sister, Rada's disappearance, is actually the subject of its own equally intriguing quest, called The Straw That Broke, in which, after speaking to Narfi, you can talk to the town's local innkeeper, a man named Wilhelm, who will inform the Dragonborn that Rada was last seen south of the village picking flowers, and he suspects the worst. To make a long story short, you'll find her bones in a nearby river, and can return a locket of hers to Narfi in order to make him feel a bit better and complete the quest. What actually killed Rada is a bit of a major mystery in its own right though, as it's unlikely she just decided to randomly go swimming with her valuables on her, so she either accidentally fell into the water, or, as some suspect, was the victim of foul play. If the latter is to be the case, it's not very likely bandits are to blame, as, again, you can find a valuable locket on her skeleton, which surely would have been stolen, so the culprit probably had to have had personal motivations. Well, at first, it's easy to believe the reason someone would want Narfi dead is to simply put him out of his misery. It's also possible that perhaps someone wants to tie up loose ends. Maybe Rada's killer, if there is in fact one, doesn't want someone asking questions and constantly bringing up her death. Or maybe he just makes them feel so guilty themselves. Heck, maybe Narfi committed the crime himself in the first place. Whatever happened here, only the fishes may know the truth. And depending on your actions, Narfi never will. For fourth spot, we have a bit of a fan favorite. Lurbuk is an orcish bard residing in Morthal's Moorside Inn. The thing about him is that he's pretty awful. The tavern's patrons describe him as perhaps the worst bard in Tamriel. In fact, the owner of the joint says she regularly considers just banning him from the place outright. And considering he's got a price out on his head, people must be serious about not liking his music. Speak to him for yourself, and he'll surprisingly tell you that he graduated from the prestigious Bard's College in Solitude, and has big aspirations, though he doesn't let on too much more about his past. Now, curiously, despite his sealed lips, according to Skyrim's game files, Lurbuk actually has a very interesting past. As in the creation kit, he's listed as the son of Chief Burguk, leader of the Dushkin Yal Orcish stronghold in the Reach, and a very powerful figure. Furthermore, not only is Lurbuk the son of Burguk according to the CK, but the two also have a negative disposition with one another for some reason. In fact, if you kill Lurbuk in-game, there's a very small chance that a Radiant World interaction will be triggered, in which Chief Burguk will send the player a thank you note and some gold for your actions. Maybe the chief is mad at his son for leaving the stronghold and abandoning the orcish way of life to essentially become a musician. I mean, maybe Burguk himself was the one to perform the Black Sacrament in the first place. Of course, this relationship is never really elaborated upon, or even so much as hinted at in gameplay. If you speak to Burguk, he won't mention some kid who ran off to become a bard, and if you speak to Lurbuk, as we mentioned, he doesn't really mention much about his past. So we can't even be sure this is canon. It's possible Bethesda intended to address all of this in some now cut content, but no matter the case, poor Lurbuk is just trying to follow his dreams. It's a shame we can't let that happen. And finally, last on our list, Safia is the pirate captain of the Red Wave, a large ship docked in Solitude. As you learn in a separate Thieves Guild quest, the Red Wave is secretly smuggling a beverage from Morrowind, called Balmora Blue, to Skyrim, that the guild would like you to steal. But I digress. Safia is by all accounts a ruthless fellow. Nazir says she's particularly dangerous, and when you finally sneak aboard her vessel and speak to her, rather than recoil in fear or surprise as most of your victims do, Safia will instead seem confident and even a little bit annoyed, commenting about how she's, quote, been through this dance before, and you're not the first Dark Brotherhood agent to go after her, before turning hostile. At least, according to her, she's taken on the guild and won before, something no other character in the game has done. Furthermore, during the main quest, Diplomatic Immunity, in which the Dragonborn infiltrates the Thalmor embassy during a party, you can overhear a handful of guests talking about this character.
Now that I think on it, I did hear something rather interesting the other day. Apparently, the Red Wave has been docked in Solitude for well over a month, and with no sign of shipping out anytime soon. Some say the ship suffered damage to her hull when she struck an iceberg, and Captain Safia can't afford the repairs. Of course, she would never admit such a thing. Captain Safia is far too proud a woman for that.
Clearly, Safia has built up quite the reputation for herself. It's just a shame you'll have to tear it all down. But with that, we are going to wrap up 5 Dark Brotherhood contracts you may have missed in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Which of the characters featured on this list did you find to be the most intriguing or interesting? Personally, for me, that honor easily goes to Agnes, hands down. But leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Thanks for stopping by, everybody, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.